Don't just live for tomorrow, or just live in yesterday. Just be glad for all you have that's in today. And though you've come through many obstacles.
Hey everyone, Connie here, and welcome to my blind reaction to The Great Gatsby. This is a donation reward for Venom0027, and let me let you in on a little secret. I have no idea what this is about because I never read the book. That may be a surprise because I guess around the period of time I was in high school and everything, and before and after even a little bit, apparently a lot of people read this book in their like English classes and stuff. It's one of those books that apparently are just like always read in high school. I've heard so many people talk about how this was like kind of required reading. And it's just like I was never in a class that read this. I have never read this story before. I never read it on my own time or anything. I don't know what it's about, pretty much at all. I know Leo DiCaprio is in this. I believe the character's name is Gatsby, but that's pretty much all I know. Okay, I think I also know, I think, I might be wrong on this, but I think it takes place in the 20s or something like that. I might be wrong about that. But yeah, I don't know what to expect going into this. It's a movie that's just over 2 hours long. And I've heard mixed things about it. I've heard mixed things. I've heard some people praise it. I've heard some people say it's not that great. I've heard some people say like certain parts of it are great, but certain parts aren't. So I don't know what to expect. I really don't know what to expect going into this. I don't know who else is in this besides Leo DiCaprio. I don't know who directed this. I don't know pretty much anything else. So there's not too much to talk about. And in that case, just to save on time, since this is a longer movie, we should just get right into it, right? So let's do so. When the screen fades to black, pause this redirect and go to the description below. Follow the link to the reaction, and after you watch it, come back here to the redirect and resume play. Because after it fades to black and then it fades back in, everything from that point forward will be my afterthoughts and will contain spoilers to the movie. So, that being said, thank you so much for tuning in, and I will see you at the reaction. And we are back, and we'll begin with spoilers in 3, 2, 1, now. So, I want to look up something real quick, because there is one thing I had heard about this movie prior to seeing it. Just, I had heard it a while back and everything. No context. It didn't tell me anything about the movie, really, but I want to see if I can find it. I don't know if I can. Let me just see real quick. Because this is a very interesting movie, and if what I remember seeing was right, then I kind of don't get it. Okay, from what I'm finding here, and sorry for this long pause at the beginning here, but I'm actually seeing a little bit of like divisiveness in regards to it. I had seen before on Twitter something that it's like you know those like posts, it shows like a bunch of pictures and it says like um you if you're idolizing these characters you miss the point. And it shows stuff like Rick Sanchez from Rick and Morty, or so on and so forth. Just various characters like that. And I saw one of them, and it showed um, Leonardo DiCaprio as Gatsby. I knew it was from this. It was the picture of him holding up the glass with the fireworks behind him. It's a famous image. Um, but obviously, I had like no context to that. It didn't tell me really anything. So I was wondering, as the credits started to roll here, I'm thinking in my head, it's like, okay, I both get it and don't. And so I'm trying to look here, and I'm thinking like, if I can find something like that again, see if I can. I looked up basically, um, like, is Gatsby admirable and all, and I find some divisive answers on it. Um, so I'm just going to say what I think, and it seems like there's some people who agree with this view. Gatsby, as the character, was troubled, selfish, and idolized to an unhealthy degree his love for this girl, whose name I cannot remember. Honestly, Gatsby's the only name I can remember, which is a little sad, maybe. Daisy. Um, yeah, he had issues. He was clearly willing to do illegal stuff to gain this fortune in the first place, which, mind you, the entire thing with the ban of alcohol and everything, prohibition, was dumb in the first place. And not every law is just. Like, that's just truth. But the fact is, it could have gone into other things. Um, we see that he was willing to kind of sacrifice his soul for the sake of this idolization of Daisy and his love for her, willing to become something he wasn't for it. And it caused a lot of issues. It caused him to go down a lot of paths that were not admirable, that were not good. But, on the other hand, what the narrator, Toby's character, again, I gotta look up the name, Nick, notes in this is true as well. And both can coexist. That Gatsby was like a good person. He did bad things, and you can't discount that. But he was not a bad person. While his love for Daisy was borderline idolization levels, he did love her. And he did what he felt was necessary to earn the love back. Granted, he didn't need to do that because she already loved him, but still. That's the only reason he gained that wealth. He was penniless. He was poor. He came from nothing. He gained that wealth. He changed his name. He became the perfect gentleman because he wanted Daisy. He loved her. And in the end, he was willing to sacrifice everything for her. He was willing to let all of that money and riches go away. But everything went to shit. And that's where Tom comes in. Tom was the true antagonist, the true villain, you could say, of the story. Hard to say villain as a term here because it just feels weird talking about like a movie like this as a villain. But Tom was definitely the bad guy. He was cheating on his wife, but refused to let her go even though he didn't want her in the first place. He blamed Gatsby, an innocent man, for the death of his lover. Granted, he did think Gatsby hit her, but he also knew Gatsby had not been cheating with her, and he just put everything on Gatsby just to get back at him. He openly and actively antagonized Gatsby, goading him into snapping, which is probably the moment that is the reason why Daisy in the end stayed with him and didn't go with Gatsby, didn't call him and everything, and chose to instead leave with Tom and their daughter. Probably because of that incident. And of course, her being the driver when they hit the woman, Myrtle, was probably not great either for her mental health and for that situation. Especially since we did see she was talking to Tom, and yeah, they probably got all of that. Like, he probably promised to like make it all go away and shit so that she wouldn't have to worry about that. Shit just got really bad, and it really did start because of Tom. All of that happened wouldn't have happened if it weren't for Tom. Tom is literally behind every bad thing. Like, as much as Gatsby's negatives are made very apparent in this film, his negatives were only really affecting him and, to a small degree, his relationship with Daisy. But Tom, his negatives, his antagonism, caused deaths, a suicide, a murder-suicide, and just a lot of just pain and misery and terrible shit to go down. So while Gatsby himself may have a lot of issues and may not be 100% admirable or great, or whatever you want to say, he was not the bad guy of this movie. I would say you definitely shouldn't idolize him, but I would also say you shouldn't idolize almost anyone. That's an unhealthy mindset. That's kind of the point. It's unhealthy to idolize someone for whatever reason, whether through love or admiration or respect or anything. It's an unhealthy mindset to have, and it just causes problems. So I feel it's better to treat someone like a person, honestly. To understand their flaws just as much as their positives. To not see them as perfection, but to see them as human. And I think that was Gatsby's biggest mistake. That was his biggest issue. He saw Daisy as perfection. As almost rather a goal than a person. And I don't think he was doing it intentionally, but he was. He viewed her as just another prize to be won. Just another wealth to gain. even if he didn't realize it, even if he didn't mean it. And in the end, it wasn't healthy. His relationship with her was not healthy. There was love there between them. Great love. But love can happen among bad decisions and mistaken emotions. It wouldn't have lasted. It wouldn't have been sustainable. And that's the biggest issue. And that's not to say Daisy and Tom are sustainable. No, that's extremely toxic and fucked up. Tom can eat shit for all I fucking care. But in the end, he won. And I think that's kind of one of the things this film is saying, and I guess by extension the book, the original story, is that oftentimes the well-meaning who make mistakes take the blame for the true villains of our stories, who are oftentimes the rich elite, the wealthy and successful, who use and abuse and put all of the blame on those of us who aren't rich and elite. And none of us are perfect. We make mistakes. We do bad things. We're not admirable. Honestly, no one is perfectly admirable. Even the most charitable, most just genuinely good people out there have made mistakes and have done bad things. It's part of humanity. It's up for us to decide what we think matters in that context. Who or what is the more important aspect? Does the good outweigh the bad, or the bad outweigh the good? That's for us to decide. And sometimes it's obvious. We know Nazis are bad. There is no getting around that, and there is no excusing for that. There is no but in that sentence. Nazis are evil. That's just how it is. And we know that certain ideologies out there are good, such as acceptance of people of various cultures, races, orientations, etc. Just acceptance as a blanket term for people, for human rights, is inherently good. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about that. There's no getting around that. There is no way to properly spin that as a negative, because it's inherently good to accept people for who they are. And not just accept them, but show them that you're willing to fight for them even. We have to decide if the good outweighs the bad or vice versa. For Gatsby here, I would say it does, but not by as much as I would want. He was definitely more good than bad, but he still had quite a bit of bad to him that needed to be worked out. Unfortunately, he never got the chance because fuck Tom, but he wasn't a bad person. The only one I would actually say in this that was a bad person was Tom. Tom was an absolute piece of fucking shit who is the one who actually deserved to die. Very painfully, preferably. Like, I'm no joke, he pissed me off. I mean, even just the fact that he was trying to be possessive of Daisy after having been actively cheating on her and planning on running away with Myrtle and shit. It's like, then he's going to try to be possessive of her too? And on top of that, he gets to such a point where he's actively antagonizing and goading on Gatsby and then blames him for everything in the end. It's like, fuck that shit. It's like Stranger Things season 4 all over again, and it's pissing me off. Because that pissed me off. That pissed me off. I don't know. It's been a week since the last 2 episodes of Stranger Things season 4 came out. But I'm just going to say, if you've seen the last 2 episodes, you'll know what I'm talking about. And you'll understand why I made that connection and why it would piss me off for someone to get blamed for something they didn't do, and for basically that just to be the final word in things. Especially when they, while making mistakes, were a very good person and did not deserve to be treated in such a negative way. But let's talk about like other stuff than just the story. The acting was great all around except for Tobey Maguire. And that sounds weird to say. I love Tobey Maguire in Spider-Man. I can't see him as anything else. Like, I've never fully understood people's issues with typecasting until today. I know that sounds weird to say, but it's like, I've heard people like say, oh, they don't want to see this actor be typecast into one kind of role because then you just won't be able to handle them as anything else, and it'll just not allow their performances to shine as well and everything. And it's like, I've always thought like, oh, I see Tony Shalhoub as more than Adrian Monk, or I see Robert Downey Jr. as more than Iron Man. It's like, I've never felt like they were typecast into that role. I always felt like the entire thing about that was a little overblown. But now it's like, I see this and it's like, oh my god, I just see Spider-Man. I just see Peter Parker. I can't take him seriously in this role. It just feels unnatural. And okay, to be fair, I guess I can't really say it's the acting of Tobey Maguire here. It's more my perception of his acting and his performance based on basically what I've seen him in. Because I've only really seen him in, to my knowledge, that I can think of off the top of my head, 2 other things. Spider-Man and a very small cameo, ironically enough, with Robert Downey Jr., at the beginning of Tropic Thunder. At the beginning of Tropic Thunder, there was a bunch of fake movie trailers, and one of them featured Robert Downey Jr. and Tobey Maguire. But yeah. Those are like, it was so short, I can't even really count that. He barely did, I don't even know if he did say anything in it. But what I really know Tobey Maguire for is Spider-Man. Like, even with his return in No Way Home, it's like, that's just what I know him for. So I see him in this, and it's like, I'm not taking him seriously in this role. I'm just thinking, like, I'm just seeing him, I'm just seeing Peter Parker the entire time. I know that sounds dumb, and it is. It is very dumb. But it's just what my mind instantly went to. And it's like, it's perception. It's typecasting. He's become so actively known for that role and nothing else that I can't see him as anything else. It feels off to me. And the thing is, like, Andrew Garfield I've seen in other things, and I've loved him in other things. He never felt typecast to it. But Tobey specifically has been so, like, everyone just sees him as Spider-Man. Like, that's what everyone sees Tobey Maguire as. They hear that name, they think Spider-Man. Nothing else. That's the one thing he's really known for. And it's just, uh, I hate it because I didn't dislike him or anything in this. He just felt so off that I could not take him seriously. Everyone else in this did a phenomenal job. Obviously, Leo DiCaprio was amazing as he always is. All the other actors did a great job, served their roles perfectly. It was literally just him. Another issue I had watching this is they played modern music at this, and it felt really fucking out of place. There's like modern music, like rap and shit in this, and it's like this is taking place in the Roaring '20s. Why the fuck is there this kind of music? It's like this it wasn't a thing, and it just feels so out of place. It's like there's a way to integrate music into a movie where it feels natural, even if the music technically wouldn't have existed back then. But the kind of music they were putting into this, it's just like, why? What? It just felt like a really bad decision. And it was extremely distracting. There are also certain shots that I don't know if you noticed were slowed down. And that was really distracting too. There were also a couple scenes that had like some really weird cuts in them. But for the most part, I think the directing and all of that, the cuts, all the work in that regard, most of the musical score was fine. So no real like massive issues there, but it's just some stuff that was distracting and hard to focus on the movie because of. The pacing in the first half was pretty good, but then it slowed down for like maybe 15-20 minutes, and it like really fucking slowed down. Like it hit the like hour 5 minute mark or so, and I started like realizing it just really fucking slowed down. And I was checking the recording timer and shit, and it felt like another hour had passed when it's like it's only been 15 minutes. What the fuck? It was like it got really bad. But then it picked right back up again. It's just there was that small portion there that was just really slow for me. And honestly, I'm going to be completely honest with you. I already mentioned I can't even remember the names without having to look them up again on my phone here. I'm not going to remember pretty much any of these names after a while, except for Gatsby himself. And I'm probably not going to remember a lot of the story or whatnot either. Because, to be honest, it wasn't something that I feel would be memorable to me. Just based on past experiences and the kind of stuff I remember the most, this is something that just I'm not going to remember. I'm not going to... I'm going to think about, like, in a week's time, I'm going to like, oh, I watched Great Gatsby. I might remember little bits and pieces, but there's a lot of details that will just completely go over my head. And that just sometimes tends to happen. Sometimes movies don't stick with me as well, and this seems like that kind of movie. And that's not to say it was bad. Again, outside of that slow portion, I enjoyed watching this. I was interested, and I was just really trying to figure out where it was going to end. But this is not a movie I would consider a top-tier movie for me. It's not up there. It's not bad by any means, but I would put it like at the high point of mid for me. It's right kind of center, but top of center. It's not bad, but it's not really it's not quite reaching good either. There are issues that just take me out of it a bit. There are some things that do bother me in terms of how it's made and written and whatnot. And just in general, it's not going to stick with me. it's not that kind of movie that really gets me excited or interested at all. So, unfortunately, yeah, I just kind of find it like, again, high mid. Um, but I'm still glad I finally got to see this. This is a movie that came out in like 2013, and I had obviously heard about it since then. I've heard about the book well before then. And I just never saw this, and it's like, now I have. Now I can say I have seen The Great Gatsby. I've still never read the book. I don't know if I ever will, but I have now seen the 2013 movie adaptation. And yeah, it was enjoyable enough. It kept my attention. It didn't, like, piss me off too much, outside of Tom. And I was able to finish watching it, so that's saying something at least. I mean, granted, there's almost no movies that I have quit like in the middle of watching. That's happened like once or twice in my entire life. But I more mean that I was able to keep watching it without being bored. Again, most of the time. Like 15 to 20 minutes outside of the entire 2+ hour film. So that's saying something. But yeah, I hope that I got my thoughts across as well as I could. As I mentioned while we were doing the reaction, I did record the final 2 episodes of The Boys Season 3 before this, so if I wasn't saying a lot during the reaction or whatnot, or if I seemed tired, that's why. Doing 2 huge reactions right in a row is a lot to handle. But I needed to get both of these done today, so yeah. Of course, you're not even seeing those 2 episodes of The Boys until, well, not yet. So you're just seeing the movie today. But still, the point still stands. You get what I'm saying. Hopefully. If there's anything you would like clarification about or whatnot, please ask me in the comments. Right now, it's like I need to get some lunch. And on top of that, I think I'm just ready to finish up with this. And maybe I'll check out some reviews and stuff. But if you, like I said, if you have any questions or comments, or if you want to get any clarification on my thoughts on something, feel free to ask. I am more than happy to give my thoughts. It's just there's so much that I could probably talk about, but there's a lot that I'm just not going to be able to properly articulate with speech. I'm better at describing things and talking about things through text, through typing. Just part of who I am. But either way, thank you, Venom0027, for requesting this. Like I said, I am glad that I got to see it. Even if it wasn't one of my favorites, I'm still happy that I finally got to check it out. And maybe the next one I end up getting to will be something that I love a lot more. I don't know. We'll see. But in the meantime, thank you all so much for tuning in. And for now, I'm Connie, and I'm signing off. See y'all next time.